Hi everybody, in this Alibre Atom3D tutorial, we're going to talk a little bit about good practices, especially as it relates to the creation of sketches and features. In this example, you see we've got a pretty basic part comprised of one sketch and one extrusion. And this is intended to show kind of an extreme example of maybe something that you'd like to avoid. If we go into Edit Sketch 1, we're going to see, holy moly, there is a lot going on in this sketch. This is basically an example of trying to accomplish way too many things in a single sketch. We've got dimensions everywhere. There's really not a good way we can, reorganize the dimensions to kind of clearly show what they even represent because there's just too many of them. The additional thing is the constraint solver, because there's so much geometry with equal constraints and vertical and horizontal and perpendicular. If we try to start drawing new geometry, rapidly, pretty much see all these different kind of inferred constraints that are happening. We've got a tangent, we've got a perpendicular, more tangent, more perpendicular. Somewhere there's going to be an equal constraint. So the creation of new geometry is more difficult than it needs to be because it's evaluating this new line based on every other figure in the model, and so, or of a sketch at least. And so as the amount of sketch figures grows within a single sketch anyway, it becomes more difficult to edit things and to create new things. And it can be a nightmare. Some people have made sketches that are, hundreds of figures, and it's just not the best way to do it. So let's look at maybe a different approach. We're going to go over to the same model. And if you look at the Design Explorer, the first thing you'll notice is that we're not trying to do everything in a single feature. We have 4 features, and just to keep our minds sane, along the way we've named these features something meaningful. So you can quickly get into the habit as you design of just letting everything name itself by default. Extrusion 1, Sketch 1, Extrusion 2, Revolve 2, Loft 1. But if you're making things for maintainability, you want to make sure, especially if other people are going to look at it, that you kind of give some meaningful names to these. So let's talk about quickly how you name features. As you create features, in the dialog box, there's going to be this item called label. And it's that simple. You just go in and you type whatever you want and you press OK. For sketches, it's probably not a bad idea to name your sketches too, but it's not required as long as you have the features named properly. If you want to name a sketch, just right-click it and select Rename. And you can also do that for features too. So that's thing number 1, right? As you go, name your features something meaningful. It's just a good habit to get into because it'll make your life, when you come back to this part 3 months down the road, 9 months down the road, and you need to edit it, you're not faced with, this catastrophe that you have to kind of figure out and just make your life more complicated. The next thing is, as a logical consequence of breaking these out, our sketches are so much simpler. So let's just kind of look at these one by one. Our base sketch, all it's trying to do is be a rectangle, right? And so it's really easy to analyze, what are the issues here? Why is maybe something a red or an orange because it's not fully dimensioned? The simpler you can make things, the better. Let's go into the next sketch, which is the crosscut. And the only thing this is trying to do is this cross. Now, there's a balance here, right? I'll show you when we get into the holes. We're doing 5 holes in this one sketch. Now, you could, if you wanted to go real crazy with it, do a separate feature for each of these holes. That would be an example of going too far, right? So there's some kind of a balance. You want to group your things within a sketch that are kind of similar to other objects. So all of these holes maybe have pretty simple definitions, and they're all probably, going to be the same size. And so we might want to put an equal constraint between them, which means that they all need to be in the same sketch. So, this is to kind of illustrate that you don't want to go too far and have an unnecessary amount of features with way too simple of sketches per feature. And the decision on what to break out and what not to break out will come with experience. It's just something you have to kind of do. But especially while you're starting out, you should tend towards making things more simple and making more features rather than trying to cram everything into one big mega feature and mega sketch that will just become a disaster later when you're trying to edit it. That's all for this video. Hopefully that'll give you guys some good insight into some best practices.